Hi everyone. Today we're going to be recording a podcast for the CWU Openreach on the pre-use inspection of vehicles. And especially this is really important for our engineers, and we know that Openreach in particular have a real focus on it at the moment. But first I want to introduce ourselves. I'm Fiona Curtis and I'm a National Officer for the CWU. And with me today I've got Cian. Do you want to introduce yourself, Cian?
Yeah, hi everyone. Cian Opie, CWU National Team for Openreach as the young worker, but I am also 1 day a week as an FTTP engineer on the tools. And I'll pass over for Lewis to introduce himself.
Hi everybody, my name is Lewis O'Connor. I'm also on the CWU National Team for Openreach.
And just as well, we're also going to try and task ourselves. We're going to try and do this podcast in 15 minutes because we know that's the amount of time that our engineers get to complete their vehicle checks. There is also other tasks that we know the engineers have to do as well, but we're going to try and see if we can keep to the 15 minutes for this. So wish us luck. We'll see how we get on coming near the end. I suppose in particular, one of the first questions is, why is it important for the engineers and our engineers to complete the vehicle checks?
Well, I think first and foremost, safety is absolute paramount. So that is the main reason that the checks need to be done, both for the safety of our engineers, as well as the safety of other road users and members of the public who could be affected by sort of vehicles not being or sort of being in substandard condition.
I suppose there's also the aspect as well of personal liability in terms of obviously if you're not complying to the road standards and whatever else, if you get pulled over or whatever it may be by police, DVSA, you're then liable for the condition of your vehicle, because obviously you're the one that's driving it. So it's not the company wouldn't be responsible for it, it'd be yourselves as the engineer, as the individual. So that's also something else to bear in mind.
Yep. I think that the next one it might sound like a wee bit of a stretch, this one, but the more time our vehicles are off the road, then the poorer service we're effectively delivering to the customers, which in turn, if we're delivering poorer service and bringing in less money or putting out more money on repairs and whatnot, then it could be jobs that are on the line in future, if you know what I mean. So I think it might sound like a bit of a stretch, job security on vehicle checks, but I think it could be something that's important that we should keep in mind as well.
Yeah, I think the big thing isn't it? Especially it's for the individual safety, isn't it, for our engineers?
Yeah.
And making sure that they're keeping themselves safe and that they get home safe at the end of day two.
Yeah.
I think this is where Openreach had highlighted to us some of the statistics of vehicle checks, MOT failures, and a lot of it was down to even the tyres and even the threads on the tyre. And that is something that especially we do want to make sure that our engineers are getting home at the end of day and they are getting home safely. So this is where it is just important to make sure that those checks are being done. I know Cian, especially that Cian's still doing those checks. I used to do the checks myself. And this is where it kind of comes on to some of the reasons then of why our engineers haven't been completing the checks, why there's still some of them aren't completing it. I suppose then I've maybe come to yourself, Cian, maybe to bring some of those examples.
I suppose one of the main things, especially from an engineering perspective, is actually pressure to get the jobs done, especially on FTTP and SD side of things. It's not even necessarily always pressure from managers, it's actually self-inflicted pressure as well, because you almost don't want to be seen as underperforming, like, not getting to your first job on time and stuff like that. So yeah, it's the time pressure in the morning of literally just get in the van, bump, go. Another reason I suppose would be like education, lack of education. I know for a fact when I first started Yarnfield, there wasn't much around being originally shown how to do a vehicle check. Thankfully, I already knew bits and bobs myself, but upon initial start, there was nothing really set in stone, and you physically shown how to do one, and I feel like that is still the case. Don't get me wrong, you can speak to your union reps and your branches, stuff like that, to get advice on how to do it, but I feel like there should be a big push on the educational piece, so that way then engineers actually know what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I think you kind of touched on there about engineers not knowing what checks they're supposed to be doing. And I think that sort of rings true and brings us on to the Holman's app, because I know that on the app there's loads of checks on there, like several different sort of fluid checks that people don't really understand what exactly it is they're supposed to be checking, and there's a whole sort of host of issues with that. But I think what happens is they go through it and they try to do their checks, and you go, well, do you know what, that one doesn't apply to me, I don't know what that one means. And as you aforementioned, they're already under pressure and putting stress on themselves to get their jobs done and get to their first job, and people might say, oh, do you know what, it's stressing me out a bit too much and I need to get to this first job, so I just need to sort of disregard it. So there's certainly issues there. There's other issues with the Holman's app, as I mentioned, sort of loading times, especially in the morning, and especially for those sort of members that are in rural areas, maybe with no service. It's hard for them to get on, and sort of, it's impossible to do it in 15 minutes, because as we've seen, it can take 5-10 minutes to load the app up. Do you know what I mean? Never mind get through all the checks that are supposed to be done in that time. So I think that there's a whole host of issues there, which need to be addressed.
I suppose that on top of that as well, a lot of people who are sort of typically home parkers aren't also paid for that 15 minutes of vehicle checks. So I suppose in their heads, they're like, well, why should I do something that involves work sort of in my own time, really? But obviously, another thing for people to bear in mind is it is your safety and your liability at the end of the day. So you still need to do them properly. But I suppose that is another main reason why people don't spend enough time doing them. But also that 15 minutes allocated, like you said, it's not enough time, but especially when you've got to look through your job notes that you've been given as well. It's just not realistic in a lot of scenarios.
I think as well, one of the other issues that was raised to us when we were speaking to members and stuff about checks is that they don't want to raise issues, because how much a hassle it can be getting your vehicle into the garage and the wait time to then try and get it back on the road, and it can be a real hassle with the garages. So that is something else that came up quite a bit when we spoke to members about this issue.
And I can vouch for that, because literally that happened to me the other day. I moved from van to van, and it took me from 8:30 in the morning till about 3 o'clock in the afternoon just to swap vans, because they're all in different locations and stuff. So it's how they expect you to be able to do it sometimes, I don't know.
And especially whenever you do feel as though you try and get to your job and get the work actually completed. And I think it's really important as well that members come and speak to us, come and speak to your local rep, come and speak to your branch, because the more we know of the issues around doing your vehicle checks, the more we can then bring this to the business and to Openreach, and we can try to work through, right, how do we try to resolve some of this, and how do we make improvements on what is existing, what's out there at the moment. One thing I do want to say is that if there's something wrong with your vehicle, especially for health and safety reasons, make sure that you are reporting it and that you are bringing it into the garage, because we don't want any of our members out there driving any vehicle that's not safe. We want to make sure, again, that you get home safe during the day and at the end of day as well. And this kind of brings me on nicely, actually, to the next question, which is going to be, I suppose, well, what are we, as a CWU and the CWU Openreach National Team, doing about some of these issues that our members are bringing forward on the pre-use inspection?
Yeah. Well, we have been working with the company, because I know it's a hot topic now, and the company's launched a campaign, which is great. So we have engaged with them, and the point that we're trying to get across is that, as you mentioned, education is absolutely key. Folk need to know what they're doing, what checks they're supposed to be doing, how to do them, because it shouldn't just be a tick box. I've ticked the app off. It needs to be, here's what I'm supposed to be doing, and I know the reasons that I'm doing it, so that, as you say, I do get home safely. I'm keeping the rest of the public safe as well as myself. So we're dealing with the company. Dealing with the company. We've been working with the company around some of those issues. So it's been quite good to engage and work together with them on that.
Yeah, we've also been it's even just speaking to members themselves, just sort of gaining what their experiences are, even just why are they not completing the checks, so that then we can feed it back to the company and just say, look, these are real life reasons as to why people aren't doing them, where anything ranging from the education piece all the way to, well, I just don't want to do it kind of thing. So that is valuable as well, that we actually engage with the members and the engineers, so that then we can, like I said, feed it back to the company.
Feeding it back anonymously, by the way. But no, one of the things I wanted to say as well was we've also discussed the pre-use inspection checks at length, both as our national team as well as at sort of our meetings with regional coordinators and reps and stuff like that. So if there is any issues with checks or anything that you're not sure about and you're not comfortable speaking to management or whoever, then please do reach out to your local branches and your local reps on the ground, because it is a hot topic both for the company and for the union just now, so everybody should be well informed and well engaged and willing to help MD out who needs it.
And especially even from what Cian, what you mentioned earlier on too, around, I suppose this is where the education of how to do a pre-use inspection check on the vehicle, because not everybody who works for Openreach understands vehicles. Not everybody knows where to check for oil. Especially even moving from a diesel vehicle to electric.
Yeah.
Like that is a massive change and shift.
Yeah.
So it's making sure that the education is there for individuals to know, right, what is the checks I need to now do on an electric vehicle, because people they might not even have an electric vehicle even at home. So it's understanding, right, what do I now need to do for that? So I think that it really is massive. And if individuals and engineers, if you want to speak up to your manager, there's patch leads to senior engineers, but right across the piece then as well, this is where the CWU can come into it, that if you are that wee bit nervous, and then what our reps can actually do is go to the manager and say, right, well, why don't in your next team meeting with individuals, actually do an education piece on this is what you do with electric vehicles, this is what you do with diesel vehicles, making sure that individuals actually understand what they should be checking for, what they should be checking for daily, and then what they should be checking for every couple of days, because there's even variances in that as well. So I think that is one of the big things too, and this is where we won't know all of the issues that's out there at the moment. We've a fair idea, some of them, especially with the likes of Cian and stuff being still on the tools, but this is where there are variances across the country and different roles and different pressures and different like picking up jobs, depending on the type of job and how long it actually takes to look at the job notes, trying to find out where you're going, what's happening, if you're going to do any testing before even getting there, trying to organize, if you need to organize traffic lights or assistance and all that type of stuff. And this is where the more that we know of what the issues are with it, then the more that we can then, whenever we're speaking with Openreach, then we can try and make some of those changes to make it easier for yourselves to actually complete some of those checks.
Oh, definitely. It's even stuff like the most recently with the introduction of electric vans, it's in a morning or on an evening or something like that, figuring out when you're going to charge if you don't have a home charger. So it's like, right, okay, I need to sign on, I need to look through my jobs, I need to do my van checks, I need to charge, I need to go to stores, and then I get to my job. And it's just trying to figure all that out in a day. So it's just getting as much feedback as possible, really.
I think it's important to note as well, that when we get the feedback, it is acted upon and stuff does happen off the back of it. So, like for example, with the Holman's app, we've gave loads of examples to the company, loads of lists and real life examples as well of issues. The company then in turn they spoke to Holman's, and they have had commitments that there's going to be a lot of improvements to the app. I believe towards the end of this year they're hoping to sort of redevelop it and make it sort of better connectivity for those in rural areas and sort of with connection issues, as well as just simplifying it, making the checks proper to your vehicle and not just the Wild West. You know what I mean? So I think that your feedback is important, and to be honest, without it, we don't know. Our hands are a bit tied, because for all we know, it may be working absolutely fine for Cian, but there's other people in other parts of the country where they've got X, Y and Z issue, and only if we get that feedback can we then act upon it and make the company act upon it.
It's also worth the fact that Openreach Fleet Team sort of release comms every so often as well on emails, so it's always worth looking at them. Even stuff on the Loop as well, sometimes there is actually valuable stuff on there regarding vehicles and stuff like that, so it's always worth reading that sort of material. And if there's anything that you don't understand or they've said something wrong, once again, just come to your local branch or local union rep and have a word with us.
Right, I'm just going to do a time check here and see, because I think we've just completed this in 15 minutes, and I want to say, well done.
days.
I know we could have went on with some of the other, some of the issues and stuff too, but no, I think that it just shows then, especially like the short of time the 15 minutes is,
It
and
is.
for completing, getting your job loaded up, checking to see how far you have to go, doing all your vehicle checks and all as well beforehand, before you go. And also when we know there's issues with the app and the app crashing and loading and stuff too. So, but at least we've completed this in 15 minutes. So just want to say, especially for engineers, to make sure that you do complete your vehicle check, because the safety element is really vitally important.
Yeah.
But any issues and any concerns, please do come and please do speak to the CWU and your local rep and local branch. Thank you very much.